Students, let us continue with the story, The Great Stone Face. Okay. So, come to page number 28 of Honey Dew. We are going to begin from the second paragraph. So, we ended the last lesson with a conviction of the villagers, of the residents of the valley, that Ernest will grow up to be a much better man than many others, because he had the human likeness, the qualities, the sentiments which was expressed in the Great Stone Face could also be found in Ernest, mainly because he gazed upon this Great Stone Face every day. Okay. So, the residents of the village, of the place, they knew that Ernest will have much higher sentiments than his other peers. Okay. Come to this second paragraph of page number 28. By this time, poor Mr. Gathergold was dead and buried. His wealth, which was the body and spirit of his existence, had disappeared before his death. Since the melting away of his gold, it had been generally agreed that there was no great likeness after all between the ruined merchant and the majestic face upon the mountain. So, people were very shallow, and the moment he lost all his wealth, everybody thought that no, this man cannot be the Great Stone Face, because he has become ruined. He has just got his career was over, he was a poor man. So, there was nothing great about him anymore. It so happened that another son of the valley had become a soldier many years before, and after a great deal of hard fighting, he was now a famous commander. He was known on the battlefield by the name of Blood and Thunder. So, very powerful, dominating young man was there, who had also been born in this valley. Old and tired now, so that man who worked in the army in his young age has now become old and exhausted of his life. He had lately expressed a desire to return to his native valley. The inhabitants, his old neighbors and their grown-up children, prepared to welcome the renowned commander. It was being said that at last the likeness of the Great Stone Face had actually appeared. Great, therefore, was the excitement throughout the valley, and many people who had never once thought of glancing at the Great Stone Face now spent much time in gazing at it for the sake of knowing exactly how General Blood and Thunder looked. Now, because they couldn't see him yet, they were so much excited about him coming to their village that even they started looking in excitement at the Great Stone Face to see how that man might look. Okay. On the day of the general's arrival, Ernest and all the other people of the valley left their work and proceeded to the spot where a great banquet had been prepared. A big feast. Banquet means a big feast. You already know that the marriage halls are called banquet halls, right? Where a feast is arranged for people. Soldiers stood on guard, flags waved, and the crowd roared. Because he was such a respectable commander, everybody gave him a big celebration for his arrival, upon his arrival. Ernest was standing too far back to see Blood and Thunder's face. However, he could hear several voices. "It's the same face, exactly," cried one man, dancing for joy. So, Ernest could not directly see him, but he could understand that others were talking about it, and everybody was saying that yes, it's the same face. "Wonderfully like it, that's a fact," replied another, "that it looks exactly like the stone face. It looked wonderfully like the stone face." "And why not?" cried a third. "He's the greatest man of this or any other age, beyond a doubt." So, this man is the greatest man. He was such a respectable commander, and now he is retired and he has come back here. He is a great man, and so it must be him. Ernest at last could see the general's face, and in the same glance to the side, he could also see the Great Stone Face. So, he saw the general's face, and then he turned and he saw the Great Stone Face. If there was such a likeness as the crowd proclaimed, Ernest could not recognize it. So Ernest could not recognize the likeness even with this man, with the great stone face. And Ernest was the boy who he has become a young man now, but he had spent all his life, most of his life, looking at the great stone face every single day, unlike the others. So for him, there wasn't any likeness between this man and the great stone face. Fear not, Ernest, said his heart, as if the great stone face was whispering to him. Fear not, Ernest, he will come. So his heart, the voice inside of him, was the voice of the great stone face in his mind. So great stone face used to talk to him in his mind. So the inner voice of Ernest was actually the voice of the great stone face for him. Okay. So it appeared to him that he was saying, the great stone face was saying that don't be afraid, that man will come. Okay. Now let me go to the next part of this chapter. Okay. Okay, so open the next part of the chapter, the great stone face, part 2, which is chapter number 10 in your main textbook. Okay. So open page number, this is page number 132. So the previous book, I think I gave you the wrong page number previously. Anyway, this is chapter number 2 of the same text, the great stone face, part 2. Now we had left the story at that point where two resemblance of the great stone face had already come into their valley, but none of them bore a real resemblance to the great stone face according to Ernest. And Ernest was a little bit disappointed, but it seemed that his heart comforted him and told him that don't be afraid, don't be sad, the great stone face will come. Now come to the second part of the story, the great stone face, part 2. Many years passed. Ernest was now a man of middle age. To his neighbors, who never suspected that he was anything more than an ordinary and familiar face, he was only a humble and hard-working, though thoughtful person. Now come to the text. The years hurried on and brought white hairs upon the head of Ernest and made wrinkles across his forehead and furrows in his cheek. He was an old man, but not in vain had he grown old. More numerous than the white hairs on his head were the wise thoughts in his mind. So he was an old man now, and white hairs were there on the forehead of Ernest, on the head of Ernest. He has become old, and there was wrinkles around his forehead and furrows. Furrows means like little holes in his cheek. He was an old man, but not in vain he had grown old. That means he had not simply spent his life in falsity, in dishonesty. He has actually gathered a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom in his life. He has not just become old in vain, without any fruitfulness, without any good result. He was very wise, and he had numerous wise thoughts in his mind. And Ernest had ceased to be obscure. Unsought for, undesired had come the fame which so many seek. And Ernest had ceased to be obscure. That means he has stopped to be obscure. He was no more an obscure man. Unsought for, undesired had come the fame which so many seek. He had become famous beyond the limits of the valley. So, even though he was quite obscure in his young age, throughout his life he has done some work because of which he has become very well known. So, the word not obscure or ceased to be obscure means that he had stopped to be obscure, but that means he has become very well known and very popular among people. So, many people seek fame directly, but there are certain other people who do not go seeking fame. Fame is nothing to them. They just do their work. Consider the examples of the greatest people around us. Those people who are truly great, they did not actually become great for attaining fame. They became great because their works were credited because of their honesty, because of their sincerity in their labor, in whatever they believed in. It can be a religious man, it can be a scientist, or a great, literature person, a person who has studied a lot, a great philosopher, whatever. So, any person, man or woman, can become great by trying to seek the fame, or by not trying to seek the fame and just staying on their path. Okay. So, there are certain people who do not seek fame, but they become famous because of their work. Ernest was also one such person. So, this line, which means unsought for, undesired, had come the fame which so many seek. So, for Ernest, the fame was not sought after. He did not seek the fame, and he did not desire the fame, but he had got the fame, and this fame, he had become famous beyond the limits of the valley. College professors and even the active men of cities came from far to see and converse with Ernest, and he received them with gentle sincerity and spoke freely with them of whatever came uppermost or lay deepest in his heart or their own. Okay, so big people from outside, he had become famous beyond the limits of the valley, means not only in the valley but outside also. So, people, great educationists, great philosophers, they would come to him and they would converse with him. Okay, they would talk with him, and he always received them with a lot of sincerity in him, with a very gentle attitude, and they would lay out their hearts for him. They would tell him what they wanted to know. Sometimes he would also express his deepest thoughts to him. So, they had a good communication, he had a good popularity everywhere without seeking it. While they talked together, his face would brighten unawares and shine upon them as with a mild evening light. So, as they would talk, his face would become bright with goodness, the spirit of goodness which was inside of him, it would come out, it would become brightened, okay, without even him realizing that it is becoming bright, and shine upon them as with a mild evening light. While Ernest had been growing old, God had granted a new poet to this earth. He too was a native of the valley, but had spent the greater part of his life in distant cities, pouring out his sweet music everywhere. Neither was the great stone face forgotten, for the poet had celebrated it in a poem. The songs of this poet found their way to Ernest. He read them after his customary toil, seated on the bench before his cottage door. As he read, he lifted his eyes to the mountain. So, there was a famous poet, there was a poet who was born in this valley, and he had gone to distant cities and he had become a poet. He had written beautiful poetry everywhere, and his poems had become very famous. The songs which were composed by that poet had also celebrated the great stone face. And then one such song and many such songs, not one, many such songs of this poet found their way to Ernest. It came to Ernest, that means Ernest understood about it, or he got hold of it. He read them after his customary toil, that means every day whatever toil he did, after that toil, after that work that he did, he read all those songs, seated on the bench before his cottage door. As he read, he lifted his eyes to the mountain. O great stone face, is not this man worthy to be your likeness? This man who is this famous poet, who has respected you, who has celebrated you in his poem also, doesn't it seem to be your likeness? The face seemed to smile but did not answer. Obviously, it couldn't answer. Now it happened that the poet, though he lived so far away, had not only heard of Ernest, but had thought much about his character and wished to meet this man whose wisdom walked hand in hand with the noble simplicity of his life. One summer day, therefore, he arrived at Ernest's door, where he found the good old man holding a book in his hands, which he read, and then with a finger between the leaves looked lovingly at the great stone face. So the poet actually came to Ernest to see him because he had heard about Ernest from a lot of people. And then when he came there, he saw that the old Ernest, he was reading a book, and just after reading a book, he was looking lovingly at the great stone face. Then the poet told him that, can you give me a night's shelter? Can you give traveler a night's shelter? That is, can I rest at your place for the night? Gladly, answered Ernest, and then he added, smiling, I think I never saw the great stone face look so hospitably at a stranger. So Ernest answered gladly, and then maybe he looked at the great stone face and he said that even the great stone face is smiling at you, and he is smiling hospitably in a kind and welcoming manner at a stranger also. The poet sat down beside him, and he and Ernest talked together. Never before had the poet talked with a man like Ernest, so wise and gentle and kind. Ernest, on the other hand, was moved by the living images flung out of the poet's mind. So they were having a discussion of ideas, okay, which generally happens with people of their spirit, okay, of their high ideals. They were discussing philosophies, and the images which the poet was bringing out through his expressive words was stirring or was, inspiring Ernest. It was leaving a mark in his mind. As Ernest listened to the poet, he imagined that the great stone face was bending forward to listen too. He gazed into the poet's eyes. Who are you, my gifted guest? He asked. The poet laid his finger on the book that Ernest had been reading. So it was the book written by this poet. Okay, you have read these poems? You know me then, for I wrote them. So you have read these poems. I am the writer of these poems. Again and again, Ernest examined the poet's features. He turned towards the great stone face, then back. He shook his head and sighed. Why are you sad? Inquired the poet. So Ernest, he looked at the great stone face to see, because he had imagined that at last I would be able to see the likeness, the great person whose name was there in the prophecy, and that great person would be this poet, because he wrote so beautifully, he must look like the great stone face. So the moment the poet told him that I am the poet of these poems which you are reading, the first thing that Ernest did was to check whether he looked like the great stone face, and then he was disappointed because he did not look like that. Because all through life I have awaited the fulfillment of a prophecy, and when I read these poems, I hope that it might be fulfilled in you. Throughout my life, I was just waiting for the time when this man will come and he will look like the great stone face. And after reading your poems, I was sure that it would be you. You hoped, answered the poet, faintly smiling, to find in me the likeness of the great stone face. I am not worthy to be its likeness. So the poet was very humble as well. And he said that yes, maybe you hoped, but I am not worthy to be the likeness of the great stone face. And why not? Asked Ernest. He pointed to the book. Are not those thoughts worthy? That is, why don't you think you would be? Because the thoughts which you express in these poems, they are really mighty thoughts, they are really worthy thoughts to be, and you are actually a worthy person. You can hear in them the distant voice of a heavenly song. So the poet is saying, yes, through these poems you can hear the voice of a heavenly song. But my life, dear Ernest, has not corresponded with my thoughts. I have had grand dreams, but they have only been dreams. Sometimes I lack faith in my own thoughts. Why then, pure seeker of the good and true, should you hope to find in me the face of the mountain? That is, you are like the seeker of whatever is good, whatever is true, honest. Then I am not an honest person, I am honest, he is not talking about honesty, but he is just saying that though my poems talk of a heavenly bliss, of a heavenly spirit, my life has been far from that. I have had a lot of ups and downs. Sometimes I have lost faith, sometimes I have lost conviction in my thoughts. So, whatever you see in the poems is not me. Then why should you hope to find that I will get the face of the mountain? Why do you hope to find in me the face of the mountain? The poet spoke sadly and his eyes were wet with tears. So too were those of Ernest. This was an emotional moment for both of them. At the hour of sunset, as had been his custom, Ernest was to speak to a group of neighbors in the open air. Together, he and the poet went to the meeting place arm in arm. From there could be seen the great stone face. Okay, so I am going to stop in this lesson here. The next lesson, okay, a little bit is left. Let me complete it. Okay. So, this was a habit of Ernest. Every day he would go and he would talk with his neighbors. This was something that he did every day. But that day he went to the meeting group with the poet. Ernest threw a look of familiar kindness around upon his audience. Okay. So, he went and he looked at all of them in familiar kindness. You can understand because he knew all of them, so he was familiar to them and he was a kind man who looked in a kind fashion. So, it becomes familiar kindness. He began to speak to the people what was in his heart and mind. So, he was like motivating them, inspiring them with his wisdom. His words had power because they agreed with his thoughts, and his thoughts had reality and depth because they harmonized with the life which he had always lived. Means he was like a complete person. He was not a fake person. He was completely genuine, completely honest and sincere. He talked about things which he actually believed in. His thoughts actually reflected his life. There was nothing fake about him. There was nothing which was out of proportion in him. Whatever he said was something which he actually believed in. Okay. So, that's why his thoughts harmonized with the life which he had always lived. So, he was not preaching things which he himself did not practice. Whatever he said, it actually matched with the way of life that he had. It was not mere breath that the preacher uttered. Preacher means the religious preacher who talks of religious wisdom. They were the words of life. A life of good deeds and selfless love was melted into them. The poet, as he listened, felt that the life and character of Ernest were a nobler strain of poetry than he had ever written. So, he looked upon Ernest and he tried to, he was just observing him and he accepted that the life which he portrayed, the life and character of Ernest was much more noble than any poetry which he had composed. His eyes filled with tears and he said to himself that never was there so worthy a sage as that mild, sweet and thoughtful face with the glory of white hair diffused about it. So, when he looked at Ernest, his eyes were filled with tears of emotions. He had become emotional looking at him because he was such an inspiring man. Ernest was such an inspiring man. He was saying things in such a lovely manner. His face was so sweet and thoughtful about everybody, and the poet accepted that he has never seen somebody who looked so kind and who looked so thoughtful and so sweet. At a distance, but clearly to be seen, high up in the golden light of the setting sun, appeared the great stone face with white mists around it, like the white hairs around the brow of Ernest. So, the white mists were surrounding the mountain, and just like the white hairs of Ernest, at that moment Ernest's face took an expression so grand that the poet was moved to throw his arms and shout, "Behold, behold, Ernest is himself the likeness of the great stone face." So, everybody around them were probably lost in what Ernest said. But now the poet pointed out to everybody that there was no one else. This was Ernest all along who looked like the great stone face. Then all the people looked. So it was Ernest all the time. Okay. Then all the people looked and saw what the poet said was true. The prophecy was fulfilled. But Ernest, having finished what he had to say, took the poet's arm and walked slowly homeward, still hoping that some wiser and better man than himself would by and by appear, bearing a resemblance to the great stone face. So the conviction that he would find somebody was not lost in Ernest. The very fact that he didn't think himself to be the likeness of the great stone face, even when everybody else thought it to be true, it tells you that Ernest was a man who didn't seek to be that famous. Okay. He was a man who was still pure and innocent as he was when he was a little boy, when his mother told him that story. But throughout his life, on gazing up at the great stone face, he has actually become like the great stone face, and the reflection of the same emotions of gratitude, of kindness can be seen in Ernest much better than anybody else. So this is just a beautiful story about the great stone face and about the lovely man Ernest. Okay. So if you have any difficulty regarding this story, I will be discussing it once again in the live classes. Thank you, students.